All these rumors are fun to talk about, and Red Bull hasn't blown up yet.
Alex Albon's birthday, and his gift, Logan Sargent's car.
With the drain covers, why is this such a big issue?
That's what I'm saying. Alonso more and more is looking like Aaron Rodgers.
He's geriatric. We just kind of want him for merit mark.
You cannot win a constructor's battle when your second driver is not performing.
Grab your popcorn, folks. Things are getting crazy.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Lights Out Latest. My name is Maureen. I'm here with Tristan, Jason, and Steven. Full crew, finally back. OG crew is back.
Indeed.
I want to say it was an exciting race, but it just wasn't. Like, we had an exciting
There's
moment.
a lot of promise, but it did not deliver at all.
It did not deliver. It was overhype, under-deliver. However, I think the first headline, we'll get into that, the movie premiere was underhyped, over-delivered. I did not know this was fully happening. Like, I knew it was happening. I knew
I saw a photo of all the cars in Times Square. I was like, oh, they're doing an F1 thing in Times Square. I look, it's the literal movie premieres in Times Square.
I didn't even hear about like the Qatar partnership, like the Airways thing.
That's the thing. I didn't hear, like, I knew about the date of the premiere because I had seen certain creators talk about it, and Crofty and Martin Brundle were talking about it on the broadcast. They were like, yeah, we have to be there tomorrow or whatever.
Yes.
And so I knew it was happening. I knew it was in New York, but I didn't know the extent to which they were going to go all out. Like the Qatar flight, which I get that F1 has already partnered with Qatar Airways, but I think it's freaking hilarious because in what world does Qatar Airways fly from Canada to New York? They just don't.
Yeah.
They don't. That's not a normal
for
flight
Stefano,
for them.
they will.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was like not a normal flight for them. Like if they were flying from Qatar, like great, or even somewhere in the Middle East, but it's not. Like they're literally in Canada. Like
when you're the CEO of F1, you could just call up the Qataris and have them fly. Yeah, you just get the whole country on the phone and be like, give me 747.
Qatar Airways had to set aside a Dreamliner just to do that little thing. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, they are the official airline right now, so it kind of makes sense they would.
It makes sense, and it was definitely like planned well in advance. But I think it's funny because I did see, like, for lack of a better word, normal people like boarding the plane. So it did seem like it was a normal commercial flight. It's not like they took an airplane out of service for that day and just flew like first class just for like the drivers and the other F1 team personnel.
Yeah.
It seemed like they just like ran this one time, let's fly Canada to New York.
I can only imagine how expensive that flight was. Oh my gosh.
So
right. And also, was there anybody else on the plane? Or there's no way.
I'm pretty sure there were other people on the plane, like normal people.
I like to think it was like friends and family, right?
It's got to back up to that same argument, though, of like, who takes that flight? Canada, that definitely doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like maybe it was they just offered it like, they probably have a co-chair. Who's Qatar Airways co-chair? So they are, I think they're either Delta or American. So maybe it was just like you book through Delta or American and it was just a Qatar Airways operated flight.
Jason's doing the research. I can hear him.
Yeah, because most
airlines have a co-chair. So like United flies, you Lufthansa here, they fly Turkish, they fly, so like when you're on this side of the globe, you can still fly Star Alliance. So, like, Qatar has the same thing. I just don't know who their partner is.
Here's this elite lineup of... So, you're right. It is American Airlines, right? They're part of the One World Alliance. But also is Japan Airlines, Malaysian Airlines, British Airways, Iberia, Jordan, Qantas, Sri Lankan, Finnair. Like the most random countries from across the globe are in this alliance.
Interesting.
Well, it makes sense.
It might have been an American Airlines booking.
That's what I'm saying. It might have just been, and I guess it's like wholly speculation. It might have just been an American Airlines flight that was just booked co-chair. Like when you book it, it'll say operated by Qatar Airways.
I've done that before. Yeah, operated by somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And even like sometimes they'll let you book. Like for example, for Star Alliance, sometimes I can book a Turkish flight through United because they're all Star Alliance.
Yeah,
they're all
in that alliance,
in that partnership. So the same thing with the One World thing.
It
works out really well though, for them. It just kind of worked out. But whoever did that flight, I know. Whoever just randomly booked that flight and then walked on their flight and saw like 10 F1 drivers, and I'm like, oh.
Again, the F1 plane, it's like branded.
Here's my thing too.
They take a photo in front of the plane with a giant like plane ticket that's like
or Fred Vasseur is like disappearing.
Yeah, Fred Vasseur is like barely has his chin above the ticket because it's so big.
Franco Colapinto, I said this before we started. He looks like he's disassociating. Like he was just given some news, like you're not going to be driving next week or something, and he's just like there. And it's the same thing for the picture at the premiere. He just looks like disappeared in the background.
Yeah, look, like his eyes like half closed here. He's like not even smiling. And then of course the one we just talked about is like he's like off to the side here. Like
see, is that not an American?
His hand on the hip goes crazy.
There he goes. Okay, so, right there's Freddie.
So maybe my theory's confirmed. Look at I think that's an American Airlines plane behind them too.
In the background, yeah. So it's probably an American Airlines terminal. So they just use it. Of course, the biggest American Franco, right?
This is now an airplane podcast.
Yeah,
we are designated
watchers, baby.
Side note to Franco Colapinto, though, did you see that he gifted one of his helmets to Lionel Messi?
No,
Fred is not even looking at the camera.
Yeah. Because Messi is Argentinian, he had posted like on his story about Franco. Like Franco had his best one of his best. I don't know if it's his best or just because he finally out-qualified Pierre Gasly this weekend.
Yeah.
And Messi has posted about him since kind of the beginning of him being in F1 or whatever. So I guess he just like signed a helmet and like sent it over or whatever.
I know Messi is a motorsports fan. I think there was actually rumors when Pitbull signed a deal with Trackhouse to be part ownership in NASCAR. Apparently, he actually asked or talked to Pitbull, like very briefly about what that's like.
I had no idea.
So I don't know. That was a loose rumor in the NASCAR world that apparently that Lionel Messi was talking to Pitbull about owning a team or something.
I mean, he has plenty of money to invest in a motorsport.
Yeah, he could probably invest in that. Like I invest in a loaf of bread. Like. You know, it's probably a rounding error on his monthly salary.
Guys, man. Like Nietzsche, like Fletcher Cox, he was
Michael Jordan. What?
He was a lineman for the Eagles, but he now owns a drag racing team, and that's what he does in retirement. Like, there's like all these athletes are getting more and more into motorsports in their own way.
Yeah, well, I love it. I think it's great. And I think it's great for the motorsports community, too, because it's bringing in an audience that maybe you don't traditionally see, or someone that's like, oh, wait, Michael Jordan has a team. Like, let me come check this out and see like what's happening.
Or like Pat Mahomes is investing in Alpine or something like that.
Exactly. Him and Travis sporting some Alpine hats will never not crack me up every time I see it. And I'm sure like normal people, because again, it doesn't like say Alpine F1 or whatever. Usually they're just wearing the basic one that has the Alpine logo. And I'm sure normal people are like, what the hell? What is that? Like, it's like an off-brand Nike. Anyways, kind of moving away from the premiere, I want to briefly just mention Le Mans. Jason, your red and yellow Ferrari again, man.
Yeah, so
they are just asking for Ford to come back.
I mean, McLaren is there.
It's like Jaws is now approaching Le Mans closer and closer. Like, come on.
2028 can't come fast enough, man.
I mean, Aston Martin ran a car this year, so...
Yeah. There's so many different manufacturers, and you got Aston Martin, McLaren is coming,
Alpine
Lamborghini is coming, Alpine has a car, Toyota has a car, Cadillac has a car, Ferrari has a car. I'm definitely missing. Porsche has a car.
Acura?
Like
Renault doesn't have one, do they?
No, neither of them have cars. Acura is still an IMSA though.
Yeah.
Like it's insane of how many cars are in, and the Ferrari's won 3 years in a row. So what's really funny is this is the third different Ferrari to win. So the first year is the 50, right? Which I think was Antonio Giovinazzi's Ferrari. And
is Giovinazzi the 50 or the 51?
I forget. Whatever he won, right? I forget. Because 1 year is the 50, next year is the 51, or other way around. Now, those are the two Ferrari factory entries. And then AF Corse, who works in partnership with Ferrari already, they run their own prototype, and it's a customer Ferrari that they bought.
Yeah.
So that's the one that won this year with Robert Kubica in the yellow Ferrari. So it's still technically a Ferrari, but it's not like the factory team running it. It's a partner with AF Corse.
Yeah. That's what I find most impressive, though, about the 3 victories in a row is the fact that it's not like it's the same like driver lineup in the same, like if the 51 car had won every like all 3 years, that's one thing. But given that it's the 51 car with their crew, then the 50 car with their crew, and now the 83 with their crew, and again, like you said, not the factory team, like a privately owned team.
Yeah.
It just shows like you said, like Ferrari's dominance. Like it's a Ferrari manufacturer. Like that's why it's part of the big reason why it's performed so well. Not just like the team behind it, or like in some races, not so much in Le Mans, I guess, but in like F1, like the strategy comes into play and the driver lineup and whatever. Whereas I feel like this car is amazing. And like you said, begging Ford to come back, like come on, let's see what you got.
I was gonna say
this headline's funny. XF1 driver victorious as wrong Ferrari wins 2025 Le Mans 24 hours.
I was gonna say though, the driver is a pretty good storyline.
If you ask Ferrari, they definitely wanted one of their factory teams to win, not a customer team. But I mean, it's still a Ferrari.
Yeah,
still a Ferrari.
How about I was gonna say, how about Kubica winning though? I mean, he has quite the story.
Pretty cool.
I know. I love that also he was doing interviews and like he was talking about like the kind of one of the first times like he's driving the car over the line at the end, like getting to do that last stint.
Yeah.
Which I think is so cool. And like if you like go back and look at his story and everything that he's been through, like it's insane. Like it's
he should have been a Ferrari F1 driver, but never got the chance.
Yeah.
I think
is he not only the second F1 driver to win Le Mans? Him and Fernando?
He's the first Polish, I could tell you that. First and only Polish
sure
to ever win
him
F1.
And Fernando.
Well, within the last like 20 years, yes.
Okay.
I thought Hulkenberg won Le Mans. So
yeah, I mean, if you're going way back in time, I'm pretty sure like Phil Hill, Graham Hill.
Oh yeah, all of them have won it. But I'm saying like, didn't Brendan Hartley win it? And then didn't Nico Hulkenberg won it? They both had runs.
I don't know if Nico Hulkenberg won. It was funny. They did a video with Nico and Gabby, and they like asked them what they're like make it like using the F1 drivers on the grid right now, like your dream like Le Mans team or like the ideal Le Mans team or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Gabby put Nico on the team, and Nico looks straight at him and goes, "I'm never going back to Le Mans."
Really?
And I was like, yeah.
But I heard he was pretty
I was taken aback. I was like, oh, really?
That's like
it's not him anymore. Maybe he just doesn't like have that passion anymore, or he has kids. Like it's different. But actually, I thought it was funny.
This list is pretty short. This is a pretty short list of people that have won in Formula One and Le Mans. So it is Phil Hill, Graham Hill, Fernando, Mike Hawthorne, and Robert now. And that's
because again, Brendan Hartley is an F1 driver, but he never won an F1.
Yeah.
Right.
So like he is a former F1
Nick
driver
Schumacher,
who has won.
I forgot he's there.
Yeah. So
he hasn't won anything though.
Yeah.
He's won.
This is a short list, actually.
One, but not the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. I'm sure there's a much bigger list of F1 drivers who have competed in Le Mans.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yeah, just look at this
people that have won both.
I mean, how many F1 drivers competed this weekend? It was a ton, wasn't it?
There's a ton. I know Jensen was there. I love Jensen Button.
Magnussen was there.
So it was so fun. K-Mag was there.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny, too, because you always get tons of photos of them kind of congregating together because they kind of just end up hanging out. Because it's like, I know you, right? Like, you're easy. Like, we've talked, other than, like, my teammates that I'm working very closely with, like, you're, like, someone that I can just hang with that, like, knows me at least a little bit. And, like, we've shared experiences. So you can just, like, yap during the 24 hours. The other thing I love about Le Mans is all of the shenanigans. Like all of the little,
like the commentary is insane.
It's hilarious. It's so funny. And I remember like not this year, but last year had a couple like long safety cars, and they start like playing like games over the radio to like keep people awake in the middle of the night. I just think it's really funny. Like I think it's very unique, and that like there's really not many things like it. In that sense, where it's like a little bit less like it's still a really big deal, and like living Le Mans is really hard. But there's still that element of like fun, like play to it, where it's like we're just having a good time.
They're
like,
human at the end of the day. There's only so much you can do in 24 hours.
Yeah.
I saw a video of some engineer that was like asleep on a chair or something like that, and a bunch of team members, like some guy on TV, just caught them as they were planning this prank. and he was just like asleep with his like feet up. And they all came at him with cans of condensed air and just blasted him like on his like ears and face. He just woke up instantly frazzled.
It reminds me of just like the shenanigans like baseball players were getting to in like the bullpen like during
lighting like a hot shoe or putting a cup on top of your head, stuff like that.
Or even stuff I've been seeing more recently with like baseball and like rain delays where they'll start like doing like little skits and stuff. Like kind of like reminds me of like kind of that stuff where it's like we have nothing better to do, so like we might as well like do something fun and like entertain each other.
The all-timers got to be the broadcast from last year when they were talking about when you make a birthday cake, and he was like, "What else do you need?"
It's like the only alternative to cake at 2:30 in the morning, and then the guy's like, the guy's just straight up heroin, and the best is like the other broadcasts. I think it's a Spanish broadcast where they came up with the song.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You know what's funny? My American broadcast kept stalling, and the British one too. The British one, the commentary and the video were off, like they weren't synced for some reason on my TV. So I watched the ending, like the last hour and a half, on Spanish TV.
Damn.
So I was having the time of life. It was really funny. They're great. So, anyways. Moving away from Le Mans, coming back to the F1 side, talk about Cadillac. They have 4 drivers they're currently kind of, I want to say, major talks with from the rumor mill. Obviously, nobody like whispered in my ear.
I think we've guessed. I think all 4
it's pretty predictable.
Sure.
Yeah. Checo, Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas, and Felipe Drugovich.
Yeah.
Of that lineup,
let's get
as
Checo
much as I love
Bottas in there.
Valtteri.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
No, Checo, please, I can't. Please.
Come on, the number 2 drivers will face off to who's more number 2 than the other.
Yeah,
it would be entertaining, but I feel like Cadillac needs an experienced driver.
Like
I've said this every time.
American,
an experienced driver, and then a rookie. And it doesn't have to be a rookie driver, more so a rookie in Formula One. So it can be someone from IndyCar or from Formula E or an American of like over from over there or something like that. But I just don't see it being 2 of these guys.
No.
I see one of them winning out for 1 seat. Like they're all competing for the same seat, and then it being someone else.
Who is Cadillac getting their power units from? Do we know?
GM.
It was supposed to be Renault, but it's not anymore.
That's GM.
So I don't know.
Okay, because I was gonna say, like, if there's any Mercedes influence, then I don't see how Bottas doesn't get that seat.
Yeah,
Is it not GM?
Is GM making their own engines?
No, not until 2028.
I didn't think they were coming in straight away.
I think it's Ferrari.
That sounds right.
I mean, there's the Haas connection, probably. So
Ferrari sounds about right. I would for Cadillac.
Could be Honda. Is it Honda?
For Cadillac, I hope it's Ferrari and not Mercedes because
no, it does say Ferrari.
The last couple weekends, Mercedes has had some interesting power unit issues.
Yeah, it's true.
Almost every week we have a Mercedes powered car that's having issues. What I think is funny is that the Mercedes itself doesn't seem to be having any issues. It's just all of its customer teams.
Well, clearly not.
So,
just one.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the same ownership that owns Andretti Formula One, Andretti IndyCar's team, also owns the F1 team, the Cadillac F1 team, TWG. Yeah. So it's almost like, why wouldn't they use Honda engines?
You would think.
That would make sense. Honda's jumping over to Aston.
So is Yuki.
So, yeah. Well, I want to say that's what part of the reason we're seeing what we're currently seeing in the next headline, which is Red Bull requested and were granted a super license for Arvid Lindblad, who I want to say he had the points. He's just 17. Yeah, he doesn't turn 18 until late August. Yeah. So he's just been approved. Now, there's 2 like blatantly obvious reasons. Reason number 1, Yuki Tsunoda is not performing. Like, I don't know what he's doing, but he's not performing. So that's like straight out the gate. But then you have the added complexity of the fact that Max could get a race ban at some
And
point
he
here. Like, he's not
almost
clean.
did at the end of the race.
I mean, I didn't see it. Like, let me just.
No,
That's
George.
totally George's fault.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
George
And for
tried
George
so
to like
hard,
call
was
it over
so
the radio
funny.
is such a
Well,
such
because
a
what was
savage
funny was I
move.
heard it on Max first. Obviously, I'm always listening to Max's radio, and he was like, it was the same thing. It gave me like Jeddah 2021 vibes, where it's like he just brake tested me from Lewis, kind of the same thing where he was like, what the frick is going on? Like, he just like blatantly like stopped on the track.
Yeah.
And I think that was obvious to the stewards, so I wasn't really too worried about that penalty coming. But on the other way around, when Red Bull launched the protest, I was like, no, it wasn't noted. Leave it the frick alone. We do not need to have this conversation.
Also,
like,
if it was the other way around, I think Max 100% gets a penalty.
Oh, absolutely. And
Probably.
I want to talk about this. We can bring this up now because I think it kind of ties into like the super license and stuff. I stand by Fernando Alonso's comments that like he had the wrong passport in Formula 1. In what world, you can hate me all you want, Steven. In what world does a driver get a penalty for causing a collision and not get a single penalty point on his license? Not the one.
Wait,
Don't
Lando?
ask
I've
me,
never
man.
seen that.
Don't ask
No,
me.
he didn't get a single penalty point on his license for that. He did get a 5-second penalty, which conveniently was added to his race time, even though, according to F1, he DNF'd. According to the FIA, he was technically classified.
I totally forgot what you were talking about for a second. You're talking about Lando's thing. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think he should have got penalty points for it. It's not like he caused an incident, you know?
I 100% expected McLaren to go to the stewards and try and smooth it over. It's a racing incident, like he just misjudged it, whatever. Oscar went through. But because the FIA decided to give him a penalty for causing a collision, I don't see why they wouldn't also apply a penalty.
Well, yeah.
Like,
I mean, if he got the penalty
for it, if it was Max Verstappen, he would have gotten a penalty point for it.
If he got the penalty,
and we would be talking about a race ban.
If he got the penalty for it, then yeah, I can see your argument for sure. I honestly didn't even know he was given a 5-second penalty till like today.
Neither did I, until like this second.
I was like, wait, what? I totally thought he just DNF'd, but
because
I guess
actually
not.
your perspective is spot on, Marina. Because it's like if it didn't happen, like meaning if there was no like the 5-second penalty, then yeah, we wouldn't even be talking about it, obviously. But because they did apply a penalty, a sort of no point penalty, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't even matter. Yeah, I see the perspective on that one then.
I just don't know why did they give him a penalty in the first place. I don't get what the argument is.
Well, technically he did cause a collision. Whether or not Oscar, like the consequences of that collision were nothing for Oscar and all for Lando. But he did cause a collision. Like, to your point, like if you use like the Max argument, if Max and Lando had collided and Lando went on to finish the race and Max was, out of the race, but he was the one that caused the collision, he probably would have gotten a penalty for it.
I just don't get causing the collision though. I mean, he just tried to pass and it didn't work. I don't see how that's causing a collision.
But he did crash.
Yeah, but not purposely.
He did touch Oscar.
He touched Oscar, which is a collision.
Yeah, but he didn't do it purposely.
So this is the thing, right? Like what Tristan was saying. I get the argument for not having one at all. First of all, it's teammates. I was expecting McLaren to just go in there, smooth it over, and be like, whatever. And I wasn't expecting a penalty for it at all. Like you said, you didn't look for one. There wasn't a big announcement about it, like breaking whatever. Orlando gets a penalty because people just expected him either not to get one or for it to be kind of inconsequential. But for him to get one, for the stewards to say on paper he caused a collision and then not give him a penalty point for it doesn't make sense to me. Like one thing is always associated with the other.
Theoretically,
so I guess that was kind of just my argument. I was like,
I just don't see how it's caused a collision. That's all I'm saying.
But yeah, like that's a valid argument. Like, how did he cause a collision? But
so then it really doesn't matter.
He caused a collision.
But is there even
it really doesn't matter?
Yeah.
So he didn't deserve any penalty points, anyways.
Yeah.
Is what you're trying to... You see,
that's what I'm saying. I don't think he deserved them. Like, I would not have given them to him watching the incident on board with Lando. Like, he misjudged it. He took ownership for it. Oscar went on to continue the race. He harbored all of the, the bad stuff. Like, he took ownership. He said it was my fault. He apologized to Oscar. He was the one that crashed out. So, like, I don't see the point too much of the penalty at all. But if you're going to give one in terms of a time penalty, it should be followed with a penalty point on the license, because that's the expectation. You always, I can't remember the last time I saw a driver get a penalty for causing a collision and not get points on the super license.
Yeah, I feel like the best way to describe it is you've earned this super license. If you're going to do something that stupid, which I mean, again, I don't know how you guys all see the accident, but it's objectively, of my opinion, that it was one of the stupidest accidents I've seen in Formula One for quite a while.
Pretty silly. Yeah, it was pretty silly.
It kind of screamed Lance Stroll to me.
Which
is not what I should be saying about Lando. You know what I mean?
It's fair.
It is fair, but like,
what I think of when I think of that accident, the reason why I compare it to stupidity is I think of the accident with him and not accident, but the incident with him and Lewis Stroll, where Stroll just randomly came up the track and bumped into Lewis. I forget how many years ago that was or whatever, but like it's just something that shouldn't have happened. There was no there. He never should have went for it.
The thing with me for Stroll is I feel like it's just arrogance for him.
There's also that with
in Lando, like he genuinely tried to make it work and it just didn't. Like,
well, no, the difference is in accordance with you, which I fully agree. The arrogance would come out after the fact because on radio he'd be like, "What the hell was Oscar doing? Like, what was that?"
Yeah,
and like he would start yelling at his own team.
I give huge props to him on that part. It was like he fully took ownership for it in front of the cameras during Oscar's interview. He came over. He's like, "I'm sorry." And Oscar's like, "Whatever. Like I don't care. Like I finished the race. You're the one that."
We all do shit like that all the time. We all do something and immediately are like, "That was dumb. I didn't need to do that." You know,
We've all done it, and I think it was very human of him. It was like I made a mistake. I owned up to it. It's over. Now, the one thing that I keep coming back to, like in my head, is like, okay, it is absolutely great for us to sit here and be like, okay, he made a mistake. He apologized for it. It's all good. Papai rule is intact. No issues for Oscar. No issues for McLaren. Mentally, though, how do you, like, you made such a stupid mistake. You gave up 12 points to Oscar. 12 points, more than 12 points.
He had him passed. He could have gained on Oscar.
He could have gained on Oscar.
He had more than enough time to do it.
Like, from a Lando perspective, like, where do you go from here?
Yeah, but you know what though? I feel like for Lando, I feel like this is one that you can kind of just forget, especially since it was for 4th and 5th place after all. Like if this was like for 1st and 2nd, I'd be like, oh man, this is terrible.
It would hurt a lot more.
And two, I mean, like at the end of the day, Lando is not that far back from Oscar anyway. So it's like this is one you can look at. You can be like, okay, stupid. We learned from this. We move on.
Marina, you mentioned the notes that like Lando had talked about. It was only a matter of time before they had gotten to an accident, which I noted.
I'm still expecting one that's more like that's the two of them fully like 2016 Barcelona style, like crashing out.
There you go.
But I'm not. I don't think it's going to be soon. Like when he said it's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I was not imagining Canada. I was imagining Qatar.
Closer to the end of the year.
Coda, like something like where we're actually like up, it's just us, you know? Yeah. And again, it could happen that we get to the end of the year and all of a sudden Red Bull got their shit together and Max is leading the championship. Yep. It's still so early and it's still very close between them. Again, and I don't know if I said this, I think I told this to Christina. He's got to be careful because too many mistakes from either of them. And Max is on your tail, but not just Max. George is on your tail. He's been very consistent. Even Charles has picked up a decent amount of points, especially this weekend, where they're getting closer and closer. And it is pretty tight. I don't say tight, but there's not even 70 points between like the top 5.
Yeah.
So, and it's still early. So anyone can like kind of take it away. And I also put this in the notes more about Mercedes is like, Mercedes introduced this rear suspension in Imola during, I think it was just practice. They took it off the car and they brought it back here and it really did work for them. So is it something that could work in the future? Are they like on an uphill trajectory or is this like a one-off?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say today's race was luck for Mercedes, but at the same time, I almost feel like it was just because I feel like that safety car really helped them.
They had the pace.
They did.
Yeah. Max wasn't catching him.
I think Max wasn't catching him enough. I think Max was helped at the end there by those lapped cars. He kind of got through them a little quicker than George did. So that's why you saw him like almost reach DRS. And then as soon as they were past those lap cars, he kind of dropped back. Realistically, I don't think that if Oscar had stayed ahead of Kimi on lap 1, we would have seen the same race. Because I do think that in pure pace performance, the McLarens were still quicker this weekend. I don't think we saw a reverse where the Mercedes were much quicker or the Red Bull was quicker and the McLaren just didn't have pace. The issue was you can't overtake very easily.
Well, I was going to say, you know what the problem is?
Dirty air is killer.
Yeah. Dirty air has been the problem of the 2025 season. And it's only gotten worse.
And I 100% think that the proof for that is when George and Max came across the lapped cars. Because in other races, the speed at which McLaren catches the back of the pack usually when they're leading first or second or whatever, and even if Max is leading and they're pushing Max, the speed at which they catch those back of the pack is incredibly quick. Whereas they caught the back of the pack at this race at the very end. Like they just barely lapped them.
Well, to your point, I think the two factors that really hurt this race were dirty air and also the tire deg across the board was just
tire deg big time.
And that's what I think hurt Max ultimately the most. I think there's tire strategy.
When Max pitted early, I was like, oh my God, we're so screwed.
I was really convinced they're about to go for another 3-stop. I was about to say, hey, let's go.
It's almost worked for them last race. So I was like, oh my God, here we go again.
I have one quick thing before we keep moving on about the FIA. It's very clear that they penalize the outcome more than the action and the intention. Like, if something was an accident and it only affected the driver that did it, like this case, they're not going to, like, go crazy penalizing him because he already affected and ended his own race anyways.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't need anything extra.
Yeah.
He didn't need penalty points. But let's say it was something different where he, like, totally smashed into Oscar. Like, you know, penalty points would have been in order. It would have been a deliberate crash. It would have been a deliberate action to destroy another driver's race and not just his own.
Yeah.
So I think that was one thing is like going back to that is we got to remember that FIA usually penalizes outcomes, not actions.
Yeah.
Do you think, and like this is like obviously open to anyone's, like, do you think that's right? Not necessarily in this particular circumstance, but do you think it's more fair to all drivers involved to penalize the consequences or the actions? Because personally, I would say the action.
Yeah, I don't think
that. Whatever happens after, you still hit someone or whatever the circumstance may be.
Racing is so unique. Like, if you go through a corner trying to make an overtake and you end up in the same position you did before, like, let's say you go off track, right? And you're behind the driver and you're still behind the driver. Sure, you may have, like, gained a slight advantage by going off the track, but you're still well behind the driver. So racing is a unique sport where, like, you know, it's not like Norris deserved anything. He just kind of crashed himself.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You know, I used to be very like what you said, like definitely penalize the action. This case, looking at the facts, he crashed into another driver, took himself out of the race.
Yeah, he penalized himself.
Yeah. Now, did he take Oscar a race? No. Did he affect another driver's race? No. Was it malicious? Like, did he intentionally crash into Oscar? No. Was it stupid? Of course. But like, is that illegal to be stupid? Not really. So more and more, the more I watch F1, the more I realize, like, all right, that kind of makes sense. It makes it more subjective, which isn't great. But I don't have an issue with how it's policed in this case.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think, like, when I say action, I don't mean necessarily in this case. I think the one thing is that if you penalize the action versus the consequence, like you said, it's a lot less subjective. It's like, you caused a collision, 10-second penalty, here you go. And I think it takes a little bit of, like, in F1, we have the stewards that are constantly changing. The rules, the regulations, in theory, the application of those regulations should be the same across all races.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see the steward change so much, it would make, I think, more sense. I think it would make, not necessarily for the sport itself, but for fans, it would make fans, I think, a lot happier to penalize the actions because, like you said, it's less subjective. It means we're going to see more consistency. And like you said, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, there's the whole, like, passport comment for Fernando Alonso. And if you look at, like, the list of most ever penalized drivers, like, Max is there at the very, very top, but then you have world champion drivers that just aren't British. Like, most of the British drivers are not in that top 10, 15, 20. It's Fernando Alonso, it's Max Verstappen, it's Sebastian Vettel, and then you get kind of the obvious, like, Magnussen, Stroll, whatever. So
Yeah.
I think it's like a fair discussion. So anyways, kind of rewinding it, I want to talk quickly about qualifying. Again, another, I think, valid discussion to have. Carlos Sainz in Q1, he just missed out on Q2 by like 200ths of a second, but he was majorly impeded by Isaac Hadjar. Isaac picked up the penalty. Is it enough? Because in this, and not in every circumstance, again, the circumstances are all different, but if you so heavily impede a driver to where he doesn't make it out of Q1, where he would have easily made it to Q2, and then could have, tried to reach Q3 and ended up like 9th or 10th, which is kind of where he finished, but you just like, you bear the consequences at the very end. Like, is there...
I think it's incredibly tough.
Is there a better way to do it?
Yeah, I was
a
gonna
better
say,
way to penalize?
do you have any perspective? Like, how would you do it?
Honestly, the only way, in my opinion, to do it, and again, it's very difficult when it becomes that like last lap of the session, because during the session, throughout the session, I would figure out something you could do during Q1. Like, forget about waiting to the end of the session to penalize after the grid is set. Like, what can you do in Q1 or in Q2, if that's when it happens, whatever, to penalize that driver that is impeding?
You give me, answer me this, right? Logistics of the time window. What if they just gave, in that moment, they gave Carlos one more chance to get back into Q2?
See, that would be the easy answer. The question, though, becomes, okay, if the time's down on the clock, like,
everybody's
going to
argue.
Part of the sport that
but
you got to
integrity
figure out
goes
where
away
you're
because
at.
everyone's like, well, shouldn't I get an extra attempt then? Like, this is kind of unfair.
Yeah, that is not ideal conditions either. That's the other thing.
And then it's like, okay, well, I don't think I have enough for pole, like, right this second. So, like, Oscar, come impede me, Lando. And then Lando go again. You know what I'm saying? I think it brings in a lot of things where it could go wrong. And again, it is part of the sport. There's impeding in the sport, and it kind of comes into play a little bit of like the strategy of qualifying. It's like, when are you going to go out? How quickly do you go out? Do you go out on more fuel, less fuel, new tires, used tires, whatever? So it's part of the sport.
Yes.
But I think there's a discussion to be had of like, is there a better way to penalize? Because at the end of the day, Isaac Hadjar still started ahead of Carlos Sainz.
I think I might have a solution, potentially. Now, I don't know if it's actually Isaac's fault. This goes back to the argument we have had, Steven and I have talked about quite a bit, of spotters. There needs to be somebody more actively involved on the track during those sessions to let people know when people are coming. So, I think the penalization should go towards the team, and the argument should be that an engineer should be disqualified from the race for the weekend.
That's not bad.
I kind of like that.
Because that's what NASCAR does. NASCAR will do post-race inspection, and if you don't pass, then some of their penalization will be either the crew chief, the car engineer, or points/money will be deducted. And they depend on, there's certain levels of, the penalization, basically.
Yeah.
So I actually argue, because it's not technically the driver's fault, technically. Yeah. It's not technically the driver's fault.
Unless he's doing it purposely, though.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the time, that's what he's saying. Like, a lot of the time, it's just the team didn't tell him he was there, or the team
it's communication.
didn't think he was on a push lap, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that was the problem there, because Isaac was on the radio saying, why was he, I thought he was on a cooldown lap. Why wasn't I
told he was there?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happens a lot of the time, yeah.
That's why I argue maybe go towards the team. The team failed him. The team failed the FIA fundamentally by creating an unsound session.
Yeah.
So...
No, I like that.
An engineer,
actually.
Booting them for the weekend. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say do that if it's like the engineer's fault. But I would say if it's the driver's fault, I'd say whoever he impeded is automatically going to start ahead of him, no matter what happens. Or not start ahead of him, but like he would.
Isaac wins pole.
They would automatically move to the next session, or they would automatically start a place ahead, or be a place ahead of them in the queue.
That'd be some weird.
That's what
it'd be weird to figure out. I think
I see the outside the box thinking. I see that.
It makes sense on paper.
I see the vision more in like you trade spots.
Yeah, I don't mean like in the race. I just mean like if it's say like. There's a cut line there, and Isaac would be just above, and he impeded Carlos. Carlos would get that spot in next round, is what I'm saying.
What if maybe in
What
Q2,
if it was like a lap deletion?
Could be that too. Yeah.
What if if you impede a driver, your quickest lap is deleted?
I do think that's a little harsh though. I think a time penalty would be a little better for that.
What about in Q2? You only get one run.
Say it again.
I said, what about in Q2? What if he only gets one run then, instead of making multiple attempts? Maybe.
I mean, they're all valid. They're all things to think about. It's kind of like, I think this kind of reminds me of like the FIA's discussions over what to do about Monaco, right? Like it's kind of the same theory of like anything you do is going to slightly tamper with the identity of the sport. It's not how it was originally intended. And again, qualifying as it is now is not how it was in the 1950s. It's not even how it was 30 years ago. So it has evolved, and there are things that can be done. Not everybody's gonna be happy with it, but they're all valid arguments. Like they're all things. I definitely like the perspective of like not even necessarily just engineer, but like a team fine or something like that. Because I think it is important that we acknowledge, even when the driver gets a grid penalty, that most of the time these are engineer mistakes. Like they didn't know they were there. Like how am I supposed to move out of the way if I don't know you're coming? So
I was just thinking, I don't think this would be the same thing at all, but I was totally just thinking it'd just be really funny if like it just makes no sense at all, but just like hypothetically speaking, if Max's engineer was like taken out for making him give up the position when he didn't have to, just like negligence, give him like a negligence penalty. But
it'd be really funny. But I think it was funny you're talking about like that, and they asked him about that in media day, kind of like about the team, was like how he would address internally, and he was like, because they pinpointed one person who took over for oh my god, I'm blanking so hard on his name. Sauber's new team principal, Jonathan Wheatley. Jonathan Wheatley was their sporting director. He left. Red Bull, there's a new guy there. I don't know his name, but I think it was Ted Kravitz was interviewing Max, and he brought up that name specifically, and he was like, have you addressed it with him? And Max was like, stop saying that name. Like, it is not his fault.
He's dead to him.
It is a collective team effort. And I think, like, I kind of agree with it in a sense, is like, he's not the only person who saw that and made a decision. It's not like one person is looking at it and within a team and being like, that's a penalty, that's not, or whatever. So
the
objectively,
only
like a team fine of some kind or something like that would make sense. Like, and something to consider, like really realistically consider for the FIA of like, if this was a team's fault, why shouldn't they also harbor some type of
that's bring? I'm just curious for your perspective, because I heard that is Zach Wheatley, is that right?
Jonathan Wheatley. Jonathan Wheatley.
Yeah.
Is it? I'm pretty sure. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm 95% sure.
Obviously, he's with Sauber now.
Yeah.
And I heard that Nico did a very similar thing to what happened with Max and George. I don't know if it's in the same race, and Jonathan didn't tell him to give the place back. Do you think if the roles were reversed and Jonathan was back at Red Bull, that he won't even have to say anything to Max in the first place?
Yes. I think, and again, there's been a lot of changes at Red Bull. A lot of people have left Red Bull. A lot of people come in. It's still a top team, but things have changed. They're not the same place they were a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Personnel wise, I think they are missing some key people. And I think it shows. I think potentially Jonathan would have seen it differently.
Yeah.
But there's no way to know for sure.
No.
So
I
don't know. I would say 100%, but I do think that like realistically, there's a good chance, because we didn't see these kind of things happen as often, and not just necessarily this incident, but things of this nature. I think in the last kind of 2 years than we did now.
I mean, I just think back to last year, just between Max and Lando.
I guess you can put it this way: he earned his team principal role at Sauber through what he did at Red Bull. So clearly, he was doing something right.
Yeah.
So
for sure. And Hulkenberg's doing pretty well. So
that Hulkenberg has been scoring points a lot. So we shall see kind of what comes of that. I want to quickly mention before we kind of skip over We talked about the crash for Lando.
Mm-hmm.
All round, not the greatest of weekends, though. There was also the qualifying performance.
Yeah.
It was just sad. It was just a little sad. Even as like a certified Lando hater, as I've been called many a time.
It was even worse is he had the chance. He had the chance to do it and be his teammate, and he blew it.
Yeah. It was hard to watch.
I think there was a lot of talk earlier in the season, like very first couple races, and then again, obviously last year and coming into this year, of like, is Oscar going to be up to the task, the qualifying task of Lando? We've seen his race performances, but can he qualify as well? And I think I think he may have taken Lando a bit by surprise of like how quick he has been and how on it he is.
Yeah.
I think there's less for Oscar of that consideration of like, can he do it under pressure?
Yeah.
It's either he can do it or he can't for Oscar. I think more so than Lando's conversation is, we know he's talented, but can he put it together when the stakes are high?
Yeah.
And I think like more and more we've seen kind of like the cracks. I think it was interesting. I saw this yesterday. I didn't see it on the broadcast, but apparently Nico Rosberg sent
I did see that.
Lando a DM offering advice, and Lando didn't take it. And the comments are hilarious. People are like,
he didn't take it?
Come on. He didn't take it.
Well, he didn't respond to the text.
He just left him on red.
It's like Nico Rosberg sent a text, and Lando just straight up did not respond.
Oh,
I mean, he did now. But,
you know what though?
Yeah, I mean,
if I'm Lando, nothing against Nico, I don't think Nico's the right guy to help Lando. To be brutally honest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to be fair,
the Monaco-based YouTuber.
I don't know if I would take Nico's advice, but I think
he beat 2 7-time world champions.
No, it's fair. It's a fair, like, I don't think I would, how to put this? I would take Nico's advice. I would listen to it.
Yeah.
Whether or not you act on it is a different scenario. Right. But I do think it would be worth the listen of like, okay, what did you do? Like like you said, you beat 2 7-time world champions. So
the other thing I'll say is too, I think it is fairly obvious to Lando what he's doing wrong. Like, I don't think he needs another guy telling him what he did. I think he knows what he needs to do right. I think
has his own support system.
I think he just literally has to just get over that hump and just, do what he's got to do to win races. And again, the thing, as sad as this performance was, he is still in strict position of Piastri. And that's, hey, at the end of the day, that's okay. If you can make these mistakes and still be that close, I mean, shoot, make as many mistakes as you want. I mean,
he's close, but he's not that close. I mean, he's almost a race win behind.
Yeah, but
and
still,
that's not. And I think like also, if you think about it in terms of like, oh, it's only 22 points, like it's nothing. Yeah, but when was the last time Oscar Piastri had a DNF?
True.
Very long time.
To take away those full 22 points is tough.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a while. Like even if Lando flips a switch and is now outperforming Oscar, if they're 1 and 2, it's going to take him 4 races, 5 races to get there, to even be equal and then overtaking the championship. And you still have Max breathing down your neck. You still have Mercedes having some good performances here and there. Ferrari throwing some things out there with strategy being able to come into play a little bit. So it's not as straightforward. Yeah, strategy or lack thereof. Let's talk about it. What the hell?
Plan B, baby. Plan B.
Plan C. I honest to God think that Ferrari would have had a podium this weekend if they had stayed out.
Don't say that.
I think it's very true,
annoying. Though. I mean,
but am I wrong? Like,
no.
Do you not have a similar opinion?
It's annoying.
If he had stayed out longer and then pitted for the mediums, I genuinely think, especially considering the safety car, I genuinely think he could have made it.
I'm sure Charles thinks that too. And Lewis, he was kind of out of luck once he hit the groundhog. Like he killed the groundhog and he lost a ton of downforce.
My spirit animal this weekend. He almost cried over hitting that groundhog.
I was going to say, he was very sad about it.
After Saturday, he said, and I quote, "Driving this Ferrari is like dancing with someone who has no rhythm."
Oh my gosh!
Oh my god!
This
You
is
are
a
epic.
disaster.
Lewis with
We'll say.
Ferrari is officially cursed.
At least he's having a nice week where he could go to a movie premiere because he loves to be stylish.
I mean,
And right now he's like dripped out going to his
He
movie
loves the
premiere.
US. He does.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
I'm there. So
Actually,
I'm
he's
sure
in New
he's living
York.
it up.
He got his own photo shoot. He's watching a movie he helped create and is starring in. Like,
Yeah.
Let me say this. This
great
is incredible.
banner week for Lewis, other than the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
let me say this. This is way too early to be having this conversation, but I just humor me, I guess. What is Lewis's legacy with Ferrari as it stands right now? I feel because right now I feel like this is kind of cursed.
Nah, it's just for fun. Just because he wanted to.
Yeah, I think that the legacy will ultimately depend. Again, it is early, but I think it will ultimately depend less on Lewis and more on Charles. How far is he? Because again, I think he was still getting beaten by George. So if you're getting beaten by Charles, but it's not significant, it's not every race, it's not like if he can recover some and have a couple podiums and be up there, I don't see why, even in a not so great car, so a not championship worthy car, I don't see it being a dent to his legacy, rather just like an addendum. Kind of like, I mean, nobody talks about Michael with Mercedes. Michael didn't do much in Mercedes.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I'm just scared at this point. I really hope for Lewis's sake he doesn't turn into next Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my God, that's what I was waiting to say. I was like, the best person I can compare him to right now is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
but like Aaron Rodgers
I was thinking wasn't Brett Favre was with the Jets at the end of his career, right? Is that right?
I can't remember. You might be correct.
I know he was with a team and it did not go well.
Yeah,
I think the only reason I think the only reason I wouldn't go as far with the Aaron Rodgers analogy is that arguably Aaron Rodgers never really had a shot. Like in terms of like his teams in the last couple years are not good enough to win.
He can't pull a Tom Brady with the Jets. Like, in no world was he pulling a Tom Brady with the Jets.
I'm not saying ever. I'm saying in the last couple years, his teams, with or without them, the best quarterback ever or not, were not championship worthy.
No. You're like saying like it's not like as if Lewis was racing for like Haas. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Correct. For example, Aaron Rodgers
is in a Haas.
He didn't fall so far.
Aaron was with the Jets. He was like racing for Haas, basically.
He didn't fall as far as Aston Martin. He just simply took a lateral jump to Ferrari.
I just didn't understand.
That was amazing.
I'm not an idiot. I do watch the NFL. You had to let me finish.
Yeah.
Except now with the Steelers, he's gonna go 11 and 8 or whatever, 11 and 7.
He's gonna get beat out. He's gonna get beat out. Mark my words.
He's not on the worst of worst teams, but he's also not on a good team.
Kyle Rudolph,
Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph, baby.
And no, you know Will Howard.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And Daniel Jones is going to be thrown to Tyler Warren this season, so I'm ready for that.
Say,
watch out, man.
This is on topic to the weekend, but did you guys catch Danica Patrick talking about how Canada was an easy racetrack to race?
I didn't see that part, but I did see the meme.
Was right next to her, and he was like, "This, I cannot believe what I'm
No, I didn't see.
So he raced the track once with NASCAR, and I think also hit I think she hit a shoe, and then it I can't remember exactly what happened. I need to find the video. And then it caused her car to blow up, and she got crashed out of the race.
I didn't see that, but I saw her talking about Lewis Hamilton. Nico just wanted to off himself.
Wait, she was talking about Lewis Hamilton too. I missed that.
Yeah,
I didn't see that. I saw the Canadian GP thing, and I was like, dude. Every time she opens her mouth, I have the inkling to say, just stop. Do yourself a favor.
Formula One car. She has no clue what she's talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's tough because I do think it's a valid choice, let's say, if you're from a network perspective.
Motorsports wise,
she's a woman. If you're looking for that diversity, she's still a race car driver. She still drove, and good or not, she still made it. you know?
Yeah,
so, like,
but
I
that's
more
think
than
there's an
Susie
argument on
Wolf.
that side, but every time I see Jensen Button or Nico Rosberg's face when she speaks, I feel validated.
that's like
I
you know
feel
what, though?
validated.
I would rather have like Pippa Mann on there or something like that. Like somebody with some genuine open wheel. I understand that, yes, Danica Patrick won a race because Dario Franchitti ran out of gas in front of her. But like still, I don't know. Like
I mean, it's like having a rugby player commentate on NFL and be like, "Yeah, I know what I'm talking about."
yeah, but again, also there's just no female equivalent to F1. Like
No,
you
there's
have to
not.
be an
That's the
academy
problem.
driver.
Yeah.
But like, or even Susie Wolf. Like Susie Wolf is the best example.
Yeah.
Unironically.
Yeah.
You know,
she's so far removed. Then
Yeah.
it's been
By the
so
way,
long.
It's been a while.
I just wanted to
think
say,
it is tough. I think
But
it's
then you
hard
say
to
shit
find
like
somewhere.
that,
It's
and I'm
not.
sorry. Like you deserve to get booted from your job.
It's not an easy, let's say, problem to fix. Like if you're
No.
looking for
No.
someone to be Danica Patrick without being Danica Patrick, like it's you're very limited.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
as I said,
Yeah.
you could take an F1 Academy driver, but then some of them are like, you know, there's people that aren't racing anymore in F1 Academy, but then of course they only raced 1 year probably in open wheel racing, so it's like it's tough to find an equivalent to Danica Patrick. I will say Danica Patrick got brownie points with me this weekend. I'm not going to get into like too specifics because I do not want to talk politics on this podcast, but she had some very interestingly timed rebuttals on Twitter, which I was very happy with. So if you are interested, you can look it up. But
I want to say real quick as well. Did y'all see what Nico Rosberg said about Isaac Hadjar and his advice?
He said don't take Red Bull seed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so funny, but so accurate too.
Yeah.
So Isaac literally played it off so well. He goes, "Well, I don't feel like I'm ready for the Red Bull seat because it seems like a really hard car to drive, and I'm like still a rookie or whatever. But I wouldn't like. I'm not gonna say no. Like, so it was like he kind of just appeased everyone. He was like, "I'm happy here, but like if you ask me, I'm not gonna deny." Like,
it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the GIF of well, nobody probably has watched The Simpsons, but it's the stupid kid in The Simpsons that goes, I'm in danger.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like smiling through it all, but he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Anyways, I want to mention 2 quick things. Firstly, Kimi Antonelli was like, his abilities I've already been very impressed with.
Yeah.
But when he was in the cool down room, after that, his first podium finish, he's the 3rd youngest podium sitter. And he shows up to the cool down room and he's sitting with Max and George, which are arguably his divorced parents. And he says, he was like, I couldn't figure out who to give the slipstream to, who I wanted to give the slipstream to. And the fact that Kimi Antonelli as a rookie had enough spare capacity. We talk about Max and his spare capacity. Had enough spare capacity to look at that and say, which driver would I rather have behind me? And I think Nico Rosberg was one of the first people to point it out, being like, that's impressive. Like, I think that's.
I'm always gonna be impressed just by just like, I'm sure you have all seen the video of him like recounting his lap times from like 4 years ago.
It's so impressive.
It's like, what are we doing?
He could probably tell you every lap time he's done since like almost karts. Like it's insane.
It's crazy. I used to remember my like Mario Kart lap times again because that would be my goal when I got home from school to beat him, but that's nothing.
Incredible.
Something.
I think it's great. And George, credit to George, I think he drove a really good race.
He did.
So it wasn't just pure luck. He did get lucky with the safety car, I think, at the end a little bit, but he had the pace and he did the job at the start. So Kimi did his part in overtaking Oscar, and that kind of worked out for him. And George took the lead.
What a disappointing start that was. My gosh.
Because all the comments were like, this start is going to be epic.
You even saw it too, like Max and George facing each other or pointing towards each other at the starting grid. And then, George just gets a good start. It's like, well, there goes that.
It's just the internet, unfortunately, hyping things up, and they just don't come to fruition.
Well,
that's how we started the podcast. The hype was way overhyped. Like,
unfortunately, too, like 9 out of the 10 I actually heard this today from Matt and Tommy, of course, our certified source here.
Hmm.
That 9 out of the 10 winners of the races this year have led into lap 1.
Yeah.
Which is so depressing to think about.
Yeah, but
we've had a decent season though. I wouldn't say it's all bad.
No, it's not.
So much left. Like,
it's less boring than, and even as a Max fan, like it's less boring than Max leading every lap because it's at least you have a couple different people. But it's still up there with, I think, the perception, regardless of races like this or races like Imola, the perception is still that the McLaren dominance is so great with both drivers that it's really tough to have a competitive season, I think. So I think it's less about the reality and more the perception of the season as a whole.
My thing is, though, I guess that kind of worries me, and I don't know what your guys' take is on this. Like, I feel like you could put a ton of cars on pole, and a lot of them would win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, clean air is such a benefactor.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
I think there's only a couple cars that you could put at the front and be like, oh yeah, they wouldn't win. But I think more than half the grid you put in P1, they would win the race starting from pole.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that. I think
depending on the track,
win the race if they led lap 1.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Monza, no way, impossible. Canada is a little bit more tougher to overtake. You know, you think like Singapore.
A lot of the tracks we've had so far.
Monaco, this one.
Monaco for sure. Even, like you could probably put the Sauber on pole in Monaco and still just about
win.
Absolutely.
You just have to hold on to that first like 2 corners, and then that's it.
And you can be as slow as you want because no one can pass you.
Yeah, like Daniel Ricciardo won without his hybrid back in 2018. Like, he lost his hybrid like a few hundred horsepower, and he still won while under attack by Sebastian Vettel for like so many laps. Yeah, it was
breaking
insane.
news: Trevor wins on 3 wheels in Monaco.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised. I'm so dead ass. But speaking of Sauber, I wanted to mention this quickly because I just genuinely found this really funny. It's funny. I shouldn't say it's funny because it's illegal.
It's not ha-ha funny. It's ha-ha weird.
Yeah, Gabriel Bortoleto's car was broken into in Zurich, and he had to fly with his second passport to Canada, which I don't know why. Like, in my head, it's like Zurich of all places. Like, you couldn't have been robbed in Miami.
That's like, a pretty high-end place. I mean, I guess you got that Xbox achievement. Shoot. But I mean, like...
Yeah, for real.
I mean, yeah, you think of the Zurich Classic. That's where Koenigsegg is based out of. There's a tennis tournament there too, I believe. Yeah, I mean, Zurich is pretty impressive to get robbed there. But.
It's true.
It's crazy, but I mean, I feel like we touched on all of it.
Yeah,
I think we dotted our I's and crossed our T's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, we didn't.
I just say I got one more thing.
Oh.
Go for it.
Congratulations to your one driver, George Russell.
That's what I was gonna say.
For getting pole.
Beat me
for getting pole a second year in a row, beating Max Verstappen, even though, Max was in second. Congratulations.
I mean, we went through the whole podcast. I only mentioned Max Verstappen when I was saying he would have been penalized if he was Lando Norris.
Marina, I don't want to bring it back up because you've been very giving credit when credit is due. Don't be pushing buttons
here, Jason. Come on.
But George is definitely way better than you first thought he was. So we still have a whole season.
I never said he was bad. I just said he wasn't world championship worthy.
Well, I think he is, and
Norris is the same thing in Jason's ears.
Right so no.
Anyways, yeah, I think he's gonna keep proving it.
We'll see if Mercedes can be consistent and not blow up. That's all I gotta say.
That's all
to
we
me
need.
When I say I am more than happy to say you were right in a couple years' time if he becomes world champion. The chances of that happening, though, are next to 0. So,
the way things are, I agree with you.
Thank you.
We'll see.
I'm not even so sure that George will be at Mercedes at the end of the year. So, next year. Going into next year, not 2025.
All
for 26. We shall see.
We shall see.
I feel like that's a good note to end it on. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back next Monday, ? As I'm now saying. In the meantime, stay up to date on all of our socials at Lights the Latest on Instagram and TikTok. Bye, guys.
Peace.